Greetings, 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 and salutations, one and all. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the end of the night shift week. Welcome to the thing we call Real Talk Wednesday. Also known as Marlon's favorite night shift broadcast. The track is called With You.
I'm drinking with you. Climbing and drinking is with purpose. The rocket we focus. I'm drinking with you. You always bring me back to my purpose. I never get nervous. I'm drinking with you, with you, with you. Ooh, with you, with you. I'll get through with you, with you. You, I'm moving with you, with you, with you. Ooh, with you, with you.
Yeah man, I'm drinking with you, I'm moving with you, I'm grooving with you. You give me all kind of purpose. I want to say big up to each and everyone locked in right now, those on TuneIn Radio, the night shift to DJ Kevin Steele. The affiliate stations all over. Big ups to those on NIE Radio out of New Jersey. Much love. Yeah man, let's do the crazy thing that we do, because it's only we can do it, you know. I want to say thanks to Pulse Media Group for sponsoring this segment of the broadcast. When being in the moment is priceless, give them a call. Innovative streaming and recording solutions. 754-999-6020 gets you in touch. Tell them DJ Kevin Stew sent you. It's Real Talk Wednesday. It's on a 5-star Akil. Track called With You. Do you provide that purpose in someone else's life? Do you feed off others' neediness or devote all your energy to your one and only? Well, if your answer is yes, well, not to the first question, but to the The last two. One, do you feed off others' neediness or devote all your energy to your one and only? If you do, well, you could be codependent. And tonight, what we're looking at on Real Talk is codependence or interdependence. Now, just so that you know, if it so happens that your mood, your happiness, your identity is all defined by another person, you could be in a codependent relationship. The word codependent is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot. And there are codependent couples, codependent companions, and codependent caretakers. But when you talk about codependency, you know, what are you really talking about? And is it such a bad thing? So, first of all, what is codependency? Codependency is typically discussed in the context of substance abuse, where one person is abusing the substance and that person depends on the other person to supply money, food, shelter. But codependency is much broader than that, says Jonathan Becker, a DO, an associate professor of clinical psychiatry at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. According to everydayhealth.com, codependency, Dr. Becker says, can be defined as any relationship in which two people become so invested in each other that they can't function independently anymore. Your mood, your happiness, and identity are defined by the other person. In a codependent relationship, there is usually one person who is more passive and can't make decisions for themselves, and a more dominant personality who gets some reward and satisfaction from controlling the other person and making decisions about how they will live. According to Mental Health America, codependency is often referred to as relationship addiction, in that codependent people tend to form and become dependent on unhealthy, emotional, harmful relationships. Codependency becomes problematic when one person is taking advantage of the other financially or emotionally. What's behind this behavior, though, is typically subconscious. One person is not necessarily knowingly trying to manipulate the other, even if that's the outcome. Similarly, a person who defines himself or herself through the relationship may not be doing so in a conscious way. Gaining awareness of the subconscious motivations at work is key to improving the situation. Enabling is a sign of unhealthy codependence. Mary Catherine Segota, psych doctor, clinical psychologist at Counseling Resource Services in Winter Garden, Florida, describes enabling as a behavior that is used to ease relationship tension caused by one person's problematic habits. Enabling behavior, which is rarely seen in healthy relationships, includes bailing your partner out, whether it be bailing them out of jail or bailing them out of financial situations, repeatedly giving them another chance, ignoring the problem, accepting excuses, always being the one trying to fix the problem, or constantly coming to the rescue in other ways. Having a codependent personality is not currently considered a diagnosable mental health condition, but some researchers have suggested a connection between codependent traits and conditions that are recognized in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the guide used by mental health professionals for diagnosis. For instance, an exploratory study in alcoholism treatment quarterly found a correlation between codependency and borderline personality disorder traits. Some of you might remember some time ago I looked at borderline personality disorders. It was quite interesting. And you can find it in the archives if you go to YouTube and you search through The Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew. You can find that broadcast in the archives. Codependent personalities usually follow a pattern of behaviors that are consistent, problematic, and directly interfere with the individual's emotional health and ability to find fulfillment in a relationship. Signs of codependency include excessive caretaking, controlling, and preoccupation with people and things outside ourselves. This says Sharon Wegscheider Cruz, who's a consultant, educator, and author of numerous books, including Understanding Codependency. Signs of codependency would include difficulty making decisions in a relationship, difficulty identifying your feelings, difficulty communicating in a relationship, valuing the approval of others more than valuing yourself, lacking trust in yourself and having poor self-esteem, having fears of abandonment or an abusive need for approval. An obsessive need for approval. Having an unhealthy dependence on relationship, even at your own cost. Having an exaggerated sense of responsibility for the actions of others. These are some signs of being codependent or codependency. Not all codependent relationships turn sour, according to Becker. Any healthy relationship will have some codependency and give and take. For example, it's reasonable if one partner looks to another for advice or guidance on a major decision. But if you seek out, maintain, or even feed off relationships that are not fulfilling or healthy, you could be codependent. Once codependency is identified, it can be successfully treated, though. And there are a few ways to get some of that treatment done. You can pursue counseling, whereas you talk to a mental health provider to help rebuild your sense of self and realize why you rely so much on another person. Codependency results from a failure to set personal boundaries. And learning how to do that through therapy is essential to healing. You may want to consider couples therapy, because sometimes the relationship can be helped or even saved by therapy to reduce codependency, according to Becker. You can reconnect with friends and family. Being in a codependent relationship can lead to isolation, which fuels the loss of self. Call or email those from whom you've distanced yourself and start to rebuild these relations. Carve out some you time. If you once enjoyed music and gave up lessons or practicing, go ahead and pick up where you left off. Return to doing the things that you once enjoyed before you became so enmeshed with the other person. Seek treatment for substance abuse. If you are abusing drugs or alcohol, talk to your doctor about treatment options. And this also holds true for the other partner, as there are support groups and resources for family members affected by substance abuse, such as Al-Anon. So it's not just those that are caught up in the situation as the ones who are doing the enabling or desiring the enabling that can get treated or that would need treatment. But other members of the family, other relations, other friends might need treatment also. So if you're codependent, if your partner is codependent, if someone you're close to, a family member, is codependent, you can collectively get treatment. Now, understand that being codependent is not the same thing as simply being dependent. And Leon Seltzer, who has a PhD, did an article in Psychology Today a few years ago. And in it says, in some ways, it's crucial that these two types of dependency be recognized as distinct, as it has often been the case. Not that codependent individuals are not dependent on others, but paradoxically, that they're primarily dependent on the other person's dependence on them. So, what's the peculiar dynamic operating in such a relationship, you might wonder? Because it is not very healthy for either party involved. It's also important to distinguish codependent relationships from interdependent ones. As defined psychologically, codependence is clearly maladaptive and dysfunctional. It may have a certain mutuality to it, but it's negatively symbiotic in a way interdependency is not. Having dependency needs isn't by itself unhealthy. We all have these dependent needs. In an interdependent relationship, however, each party is able to comfortably rely on the other for help, understanding, and for support. It is a value-added kind of thing. The relationship contributes to both individuals' resilience, resourcefulness, and inner strength. At the same time, each party remains self-sufficient and self-determining. They maintain a clear identity apart from the relationship and are quite able to stand on their own 2 feet. Now, codependency, that's a little bit different. If you want to participate in this broadcast as we go along, you want to call in, you want to text in, you can do so using 773-789-7839. Easy way to remember it, 773-789-STEW. You can call, you can text, you can WhatsApp, you can Telegram. Also, you can go ahead and Skype me. Kevin.stew is a Skype handle. If those methods don't work for you, you can go ahead and use Skype. And of course, you guys on Facebook Live, I do welcome your comments, your feedback. Now, when it comes to a codependent union, both parties or one of the members in the relationship are over dependent on the other. It's a relationship in which the two individuals lean so heavily on one another that both of them are left off balance. In their desperate trying to get core dependency needs met, their desperation to have this happen, their true identities are distorted, and their development and potential, personally, socially, and professionally, get stifled. The relationship is reciprocal only in that it enables both of them to avoid confronting their worst fears and self-doubts, as opposed to healthy dependency, which is defined as interdependence. The codependent individual in such a relationship needs to be needed if they're to feel okay about themselves. They simply can't feel this way unless they're giving themselves up or sacrificing themselves for their partner. Now, unfortunately, without being depended upon, sometimes virtually as a lifeline, they feel alone, inadequate, insecure, and unworthy. So they totally lose themselves. That you probably see this as a recurring theme, that they lose themselves in the relationship. They lose themselves in their partner. They are just totally gone. And again, it may not necessarily be such a horrible thing, but it's not where you really want to be if you want to maintain a healthy relationship. Oop. Yeah, let's not toss things all over the place. Kevin, let's not do that. Oh, I'm sorry. I just keep moving things around and okay, cool. So, if we look a little bit deeper, as according to psychologytoday.com, into the anxieties, the secret shame of those that suffer from this, we get a deeper understanding. And so, generally, as children, the codependent's needy parents repeatedly gave them the message that their own wants and needs should be regarded as secondary to their caretakers. To the extent that these children neglected their needs and focused on their parents. They could feel valued, just so that their parents could feel valued, that is. But to the degree that they allowed themselves to assert their own quite legitimate dependency needs, they were subject either to indirect punishment, like getting the silent treatment, or actually being verbally or physically attacked. The spectrum kind of wide. In so many words, they were told that they were selfish and should feel guilty about thinking only of themselves. And it should be noted that in such families, at least one of the parents was probably an addict. They were probably arrested in their development and childishly seeking to compensate for their own earlier deprivation through a substitute. The dependency on their child. They defined the child's roles in terms of serving them not the reverse. So they weren't there to take care of the needs of the child. The child was there to take care of their needs. Most codependents then learned as children that to be good enough, to be accepted by their parents, they had to deny or repress many of their thoughts, their own feelings, their impulses. In attempting to secure their tenuous parental bond, they were required to forget about what they really liked, what they really wanted, and what they needed. They even at times were required to forget who they were. So it's only to be expected that once grown up and endeavoring to live their own life, they end up being saddled with deep internalized programming, regularly reminding them that to be accepted by others, they had to make their own needs, which at this point in their development have pretty much been dimly, they would dimly recognize it. They would barely recognize their own needs. And this would become subordinate to others. Early emotional survival programs, once adaptive but no longer appropriate, continue to control their thoughts and their actions. It's scary, isn't it? The problem is, it is real. And a lot of people that we come into contact with today, a lot of they could be our friends or even some of our own family members. This is their life. This is what they've gone through. Now you might ask the question, boy, how did they get to this point? And that would be a legit question to ask. But that's a question that one would have to sit with a therapist, in my opinion, to get to the bottom of. I want to thank Policy Media Group for sponsoring the first segment of the broadcast, and say thank you to Althea and her Healing Heavenly Hands for sponsoring this segment. Althea is a licensed massage therapist operating out of Broward County, North Miami-Dade and South Palm Beach counties. She comes to you with her table, her oils, and of course her Healing Heavenly Hands and over 20 years of experience. Give her a call, 954-655-9000, and schedule your appointment today and see if she can come and take care of you. Now, she comes to you COVID-free, so if you have the virus, don't call her, because the way she comes to you is the way that she'd like to leave. And to take it a step further, her brand new business, Chioli, Change Your Lifestyle, Change Your Life, she is a certified personal trainer. So you can use that same number and give her a call when your muscles ache after getting your personal training workout. She is right there to take care of your muscles by being your massage therapist. So give Althea a call, 954-655-9000, or email her, thealater@att.net. Brand new website, brand new email coming soon. So you can take advantage of that. Hey, Janice, how are you doing, my dear? Good to see you. So, if you're just tuning in, tonight we're talking about codependent and interdependent relationships. And we're looking right now at what codependency is and how to recognize what it is. So, how might these individuals that we're talking about before we transition into this segment, the ones that grew up in a codependent home, how do these adults, how would they be characterized? Well, their self-esteem depends on the validation of others. Meaning, they can't self-validate or independently approve of themselves. Their sense of worth, as fragile as it is, and well-being is extremely vulnerable, making them highly sensitive and reactive to others. Their ability to assert their needs in a relationship, assuming they're in a committed one, not just with their partner, but with others as well, is highly constrained. And if they do assert them, they're likely to feel guilty afterwards. Their sense of responsibility centers more on the other person's feelings, needs, wants, and desires than on their own. Consequently, others' attitudes, actions, and reactions typically govern what they say and what they do. Their basic ability to set boundaries with others and possibly others' requests of or demands on them is highly restricted, as typically it was with their intrusive parents who regularly used them to compensate for the nurturing they themselves never received from their caretakers. Their behavior is largely dictated by an underlying fear of being alone, and so feeling abandoned, spurned, or rejected. Their feelings are experienced as less their own than tied to another's behavior. Their sense of themselves in situations of discord is that they are victims, unable to be heard, sympathized with, or even understood. Their loyalty to others can go substantially beyond what is warranted, and it may end up hurting them. Typically, this loyalty is compulsive. Their personal values are second guessed, sacrificed, or ignored when they conflict with another's. To protect a relationship, they're actually ready to forfeit their own integrity. They'll do whatever it takes to make the relationship survive. Yet, codependence, and this is actually considered to be one of the most fascinating aspects of their character. Codependents may not outwardly look dependent. Interesting, right? They can disguise, even beyond recognition, their urgent reliance on others to confirm their fundamental worth. And you might wonder, well, how exactly do they go about doing this? Well, typically by saying and doing things that make them seem quite in command, even controlling. Having learned in childhood to please and placate their parents, most of them can be managerial with others, and in ways that convey a contrary message about themselves. Quite remarkable, right? To hide from others and also from themselves that their lives really feel out of control. What the codependent person will do is become the person that others depend on, making them look stronger mentally and emotionally than they actually really are. In fact, it's precisely because they believe they can't or shouldn't depend on others. And again, consider their self-absorbed caretakers. Remember that story. Remember that setup right there. That they link their acceptance by others to administering onto them. become professional volunteers, routinely going beyond the call of duty to demonstrate their worth. They spend a lot of time trying to convince others what to think, how to feel, and what to do. Here again, the underlying motive is not so much to control others, but to feel more secure in their relationship to them. They repeatedly do favors for, give gifts to, or anticipate the needs of others, though mostly to influence others' reactions to them, making their magnanimity a kind of a bribe. You see how this codependence is shaping up, right? And you actually might know some people that are like this, but couldn't quite put your finger on it as to how they are, what they are. Well, they're codependent. Hey Sharon, how you doing? Cause it's good to see you. It's good to see you on here. The codependents tend to encourage others to let them be their caretaker or their confidant, or otherwise become indispensable to them, in the hope of eliminating any chance of abandonment, which actually can be quite terrifying for them. They take on the role of problem solver, decision maker, support person, savior, or even rescuer. They use sex to optimize the chance of acceptance, confusing sex for real intimacy, which, given their past, is quite problematic and confusing for them. They manipulate people and situations by way of connecting, or whether it be artificially or genuinely. They manipulate these connections, this bonding with them. Now, it's important to note that in all these instances, the codependent's behavior, whether controlling, manipulative, supportive, super responsible, sacrificial, or rescuing, is driven by the same never met childhood need to be fully, unconditionally accepted by their caretakers. And that includes being able to feel safe and protected, or attended to, empathized with, respected, esteemed. In one word, nurtured. So, in their seriously misguided adult quest for conditional, unfortunately, conditional relational acceptance, there is very little that they will not do. They go above and beyond. This is a touchy subject, Jan. I hate to ask why, but why is it a touchy subject? Not to put you under the spotlight or anything like that, but what makes this such a touchy subject? And you know me, this is how I am. I ask that question to get a better understanding. Now, moreover, as it was already suggested, despite the pretense of strength and a non-self-interested desire to serve others, rather than somehow inducing others to serve them, the underlying dependency of so much of their behavior should actually be obvious. For literally giving themselves away to others is experienced by them as necessary if they're to alleviate their self-doubts and self-perceived deficiencies. Their very sense of self is as inauthentic as it is, necessitates that they do all they can to receive others' approval. And they anticipate and cater to others' dependency needs, merely to shore up their shaky belief in their worthiness. Finally, not really trusting others, for they could never trust their parents, who inevitably became their models for how to be in relationships. Their own carefully cultivated trustworthiness ironically sets them up to be taken advantage of. As similarly, their needy caretakers exploited their normal childhood dependencies to take advantage of them. The word codependent was originally employed as synonymous with the term enabler. As broadly defined, enablers assisted addicts in their compulsive dependency by taking responsibility for them, making excuses for them, or minimizing or denying the many repercussions of their dysfunctional behavior. Typically, their problems centered on excessive drinking, since the designation originally came from Alcoholics Anonymous, and their growing recognition that the problem drinkers' difficulties were best understood in the larger context of family and friends, who, however unwittingly, supported or at least enabled their diseased behavior. So, if codependents inadvertently promote what's detrimental to the health and well-being of the afflicted individual, they're presumably helping. Just how helpful are they? And, well, the answer is pretty much straightforward. As Sean Byrne puts it in Psychology Today, in her Psychology Today blog, Presence of Mind, quote, "In dysfunctional helping relationships, one person's help supports or enables the other's underachievement, irresponsibility, immaturity, addiction, procrastination, or poor mental or physical health. End quote. And the helper does this by doing such things as rescuing the other person from self-imposed predicaments, bearing their negative consequences on them, accommodating their unhealthy or irresponsible behaviors, and taking care of them such that they don't develop or exhibit competencies normal for those of their age or abilities. The codependents actually cultivating the addict's dependency on them doesn't much help themselves either. The addict might fulfill their need to be needed and thus valued by another, but the relationship impedes their growth also. It prevents them from growing up and becoming autonomous, self-expressive, and self-validating. In a sense, the relationship, though curiously stable, is regressive for both parties. Undoubtedly, they can lean on one another. The addict more for mental sustenance, the codependent more for emotional security. But the union doesn't begin to reflect any sort of healthy dependency or interdependence. Additionally, if the addict's drug of choice is alcohol or anything else, including activity or process addictions like gambling, the codependent's drug of choice is the addict himself or herself, which is to say that both of them will require treatment if they're to recover from their pathological dependency. And though there isn't space here to go into the various options that might assist them in becoming a true adult, there are many articles and books that could guide them. Now, if anyone that is listening personally identify with what I've been presenting, then, at very least, this information should help you to better understand such an important and all too common phenomenon. And potentially, it might be useful in your dealings with those who have such a complicated and convoluted disorder. It's not to say that you're going to be trying to write anyone off. It's not to say that you're going to be subjecting anyone to isolation. It's not to say that you're going to enable them in their dependency. It's that you now become aware. You've become aware of their actions. You've become aware of yourself. If it is you, awareness is turned on at this point. Now you've become aware. What do? You do something about it. You take certain steps. So this is a touchy subject, as commented here on Facebook. This is a touchy subject because a lot of people have suffered from this, especially if you've been raised by others than your parents, thinking that they've done something wrong. So they try to please people, thinking that they will make people love them. Yeah. It is that wanting, that depending on someone to be dependent on you that you're feeding off. And when you think of the individual that may be going through something like that, you think of the narcissist. And if you didn't think about it before, that's what comes to my mind. I don't know if that's what triggered in your thoughts, but that's definitely what's triggered in mine. When I go through this information, I think of the narcissist when it comes to codependency. And that narcissist manipulating the person that they're with so that they end up being dependent on them. That right there, for me, just puts it in a nice little package. So psychcentral.com looks at codependency versus interdependency. And the author says, I was surprised to learn that this grove of aspen trees is actually one organism, sharing one root system. Each of us also is a community of 70 trillion cells that work together. Biologist Bruce Lipton believes that together we're one collaborative superorganism. And he says he loves that social media allows us to connect to one another all over the planet. Society is highly specialized and interdependent, so that few of us would know how to survive without running water, electricity, and a supermarket. We're also dependent upon our personal relationships. Human brains aren't fully developed for 18 years, and psychological and financial independence from our parents takes even longer. Moreover, as adults, we depend upon others to fill sexual, social, and emotional needs, such as friendships, communication, nurturing, appreciation, learning, love, and touch. The closer a relationship, the more we're interconnected. So, there now becomes a great debate. Many claim that because we're wired for dependency, codependency is normal and shouldn't be considered a problem. They claim it is not only natural but healthy and beneficial to be dependent upon an intimate relationship. They blame the codependency movement for breaking up marriages and people's loneliness. He goes on to say, I agree that we all have dependency needs and that relationship and healthy relationships can meet those needs and greatly benefit us. However, codependency's detractors don't understand, and probably from a lack of personal experience, that codependents don't reap those relationship benefits. Often they're in unhealthy relationships and they relate to others in unhealthy ways, which with patterns of obsession and self-sacrifice, dysfunctional communication and control, which are both self-destructive and harmful to others, not to mention hurtful. They're often abusive or allow themselves to be abused. Again, numbers to call, numbers to text to get you in touch. 773-789-STEW. 773-789-7839. Don't be shy. Let me hear from you. Let's talk about this. If you've seen any of these traits in people, in yourself, you know, I'm not trying to diagnose anybody. I have a DJ before my name, not a DR. But, you know, let's grow together. Let's learn to have acceptance through enlightenment. And the enlightenment is what sparks the acceptance. You don't have to be in agreement when enlightened. That's not what the acceptance is. The acceptance is that understanding. Codependent couples usually are out of balance. Frequently, there are struggles for power and control. There may be an imbalance of power, or one partner may have taken on responsibility for the other. They're often anxious and resentful and feel guilty and responsible for their partner's feelings and moods. Then they try to control each other to feel okay and to get their needs met. Rather than respect each other's separateness and individuality, they can't tolerate disagreement and blame one another for causing their problems without taking responsibility for themselves. Sometimes what they dislike in their partner is the very thing that they can't accept in themselves. Despite their pain, they can feel trapped in the relationship because they fear that they cannot function on their own. Their mutual codependency and insecurity also makes intimacy threatening, since being honest and known risks rejection, or disillusion of their fragile self. Now, like aspen trees, on the surface, they may appear to be physically or even mentally and emotionally independent, yet at an unconscious level, they're two insecure adults, dependent on each other to express a whole. For instance, a woman who has trouble expressing anger marries an angry man who expresses it for her. Or a man who is extremely closed and shy marries a woman who is emotionally open and gregarious. They need each other to express their full humanity. In other cases, it's more obvious than one partner needs that one partner needs the other for emotional stability. as in the case of alcoholic relationships. Financial dependence doesn't necessarily create codependence, where the dependent partner has good self-esteem and emotional support outside the marriage. Even spouses who appear more capable and stronger may be equally dependent on the relationship. They need someone to care for in order to feel needed, worthwhile, and not alone, while their partner feels valued by receiving. Interdependent couples, on the other hand, paint a different picture. What makes interconnections healthy is that interdependency, not codependency. Paradoxically, interdependency requires two people capable of autonomy, the ability to function independently. When couples love each other, it is normal to feel attached, to desire closeness, to be concerned for each other, and to depend upon each other. Their lives are intertwined, and they're affected by and need each other. However, they share power equally and take responsibility for their own feelings, their own actions, and their contributions to the relationship. Because they have self-esteem, they can manage their thoughts and feelings on their own and don't have to control someone else to feel okay. They can allow for each other's differences and honor each other's separateness. Thus, they're not afraid to be honest. They can listen to their partner's feelings and needs without feeling guilty or become defensive. Since their self-esteem doesn't depend upon their partner, they don't fear intimacy. And dependence doesn't threaten their relationship. In fact, the relationship gives them each more freedom. There's mutual respect and support for each other's personal goals, but both are committed to the relationship. That is the big difference when you look at codependency and interdependency. So, how then do you break free from being codependent? How do you then grow into an interdependent relationship? Before we answer that question, I want to thank Althea for being this previous segment's sponsor, and to thank Reggae Global Entertainment for sponsoring this current segment that we're in. Reggae Global will act as your booking agents, handle your tour management, take care of your copywriting, your publishing, trademarks, business registration, legal service referrals, music production, marketing and promotion, and more. Reggae Global has a brand new phone number, 954-804-8199, that you can call between the hours of 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern. You can also visit Reggae Global Entertainment at reggaeglobalentertainment.com. Check them out, see if what they provide is what you need, and tell them DJ Kevin Stew sent you. If you're just tuning in, welcome to the broadcast. Big ups to those listening in on NIE Radio. Much love to you. Those who are locked in on TuneIn Radio on the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. Big ups to you. If you're tuning in by way of the podcast, so you're catching this after now when we're doing it live, you can catch us live Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays from 10 p.m. Eastern until, well, most times 12 midnight. But definitely starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Mondays community and finance. Tuesdays is healthy love, and Wednesdays is real talk, also known as Marlon's favorite night shift broadcast. And though each is their own theme, they're all connected because they're all aspects of who we are and how we live. Now, as it relates to breaking free from codependency, again, you initially have to recognize some of the signs of what being codependent or being in a codependent relationship are. These being providing money to support a habit, denying the problem, avoiding conflict at all costs, even if it means denying that there is even a problem. Feeling responsible for your partner's thoughts, feelings, and actions. Making excuses to cover up your partner's substance abuse, for example, calling in sick to work for them when they are hungover. Saying yes to your loved one when you want to say no. Providing care for the person when addiction symptoms present themselves physically. Putting your partner's needs above your own, neglecting your own self-care and needs, and turning to drugs or alcohol to cope with the stress of or dysfunction of the situation. Now, in looking back at some of the areas of codependency that we've covered, in order to recognize how to break free from it, you have to recognize that many psychological experts believe that codependency is a learned behavior that is induced early in life. Research suggests that codependency often originates from experiences within the family of origin. So, if you find that you have codependent behaviors, it's more often than not because that is the family structure that you were brought up in. Now, some of the effects of codependency, of course, it can cause the person who is doing the rescuing to feel extreme amounts of anxiety and emotional distress. Codependency can lead to alcohol and drug abuse, as well as eating disorders and other mental health problems. A codependent relationship may be so consuming that all other relationships unravel. A person may even lose the ability to keep up with responsibilities outside of that relationship. So, how does one even start to look at overcoming codependency? Now, of course, it can be hard. Breaking the chains of codependency, according to caredfor.com, is a lengthy process that is at best undertaken with the help of a therapist, or another professional. And there are some general guidelines on overcoming codependency. One thing that all codependent relationships have in common is a lack of boundaries. Two people in a codependent relationship may be so enmeshed that they don't realize that boundaries can and should exist. A boundary is a physical or emotional limit that a person sets to protect their own identity and well-being. In healthy relationships, boundaries are established and honored as a part of the natural give and take process. Two people in a codependent relationship cannot establish or honor boundaries due to rooted beliefs about their worth or purpose. Again, looking at how codependent individuals are, boundaries is only going to cause problems in that relationships, in those relationships. So, is it possible to set boundaries? Yes, it is. After relating to another person in the absence of any for so long, it is possible to set boundaries. And the process often starts with identifying your feelings. Do you feel resentful that you're being taken, that you're being asked to do something, or you're tired of neglecting your instincts, your feelings of or your life responsibilities to maintain peace with another person? These may be signs that it's time to set up some boundaries. It's important to refuse requests that violate your personal beliefs or your principles. You may, for example, need to communicate that you will not lie on behalf of your loved one when asked to provide a cover story. Having a clear no lying policy in place protects you from having to justify your boundary for every specific scenario where you're asked to lie. So, if your partner is an alcoholic and they're drinking on a work night and they're asking you to cover up for them, to say that they're not feeling well, which is why they're not at work, this policy, putting this boundary in place, then protects you from having to justify that. And it should help in alleviating that demand that they are placing on you to lie on their behalf. That's how that works. If you're the one living with the addiction, it's important to consider your willingness to attend events or to have interactions that place you near substances. Is seeing your family more important than avoiding a family picnic where alcohol will be served? That's a legit question. You may not have realized that you could refuse an invitation for the sake of protecting your sobriety if you've been living without personal boundaries. It's also possible that you may simply need to set up limits for how long you will stay at events as a way to protect your sobriety. Each boundary is highly personal. And again, it's a boundary. It is something that you negotiate as you go along. And you may move, you may advance it or even recline it, retreat it as may be, retract it as is necessary. It's a boundary. It's not a rule. It is not something set in place to control someone else. It's something set in place to protect you. Now, the big thing to remember about setting boundaries is that you're not doing it for the sake of controlling or eliciting actions of another person. Boundaries are only done for the sake of self-care. Like I just said, they must be set with the knowledge and acceptance of the fact that only you can set and manage your boundaries. The perception and reaction of the other person is not your problem to solve. How they feel about your boundaries is not your main concern. And if they're in so much opposition to your boundaries that it causes a rift in the relationship, it causes even the end of the relationship, then guess what? You're much better off. Because you get to honor your boundaries. It can be extremely difficult to untangle from a codependent relationship. Identifying your participation in a codependent relationship or codependent dynamic is a first step to unfurling yourself. It's important to say that exiting codependency does not necessarily mean exiting a relationship. It simply means that you are relearning how to relate to and love a person through boundaries and self-care. The journey is not usually an easy one. That is why seeking help for addiction codependency is critical in learning new patterns. Something very good is waiting on the other side of an unhealthy cycle. The scary thing about cycles is that they come back to a point. And if you are in a codependent cycle, at some point you're going to come out of it, but you're going to go back into it. If you stay there, then it isn't a cycle. If you keep going back, it's the cycle, right? You want to break that cycle. That is, not all cycles are meant to exist. In this case, being codependent, where it affects you negatively, is not one that should exist. Anything negatively affecting your growth, development, your life is not something that you want to keep. So the question then becomes, how do you build a relationship based on interdependence if codependence is all you know? verywellmind.com says most of us value connections with others. And it is especially true in our romantic relationships. In fact, we are wired for connection, and it allows us to create bonds and intimacy with our partner. The success of long-term relationships depends heavily on the quality of our emotional connection with each other. When we think of our ideal relationships, we often think of a wonderful, close, lifelong relationship with our most important person, or persons, as the case may be in some forms of relationships. How do we build that kind of relationship? That cozy, safe, long-term bond with someone who we know has our back for the long haul. A relationship that gives us the freedom to be ourselves, that supports our growth and allows us to have flexibility with each other. One of the key elements is understanding the difference between interdependence and codependence. So, interdependence, once again, suggests that partners recognize and value the importance of the emotional bond they share while maintaining a solid sense of self within the relationship dynamic. An interdependent person recognizes the value of vulnerability, being able to turn to their partner in meaningful ways to create emotional intimacy. They also value a sense of self that allows them and their partner to be themselves without any need to compromise who they are or their values system. Being dependent on another person can sound scary or even unhealthy. Growing up, we're often taught an overinflated value of independence to be somewhat self-contained, with a high value placed on not needing others for emotional support. As valuable as having a sense of independence is, taken to an extreme, this can actually get in the way of being able to connect emotionally with others in a meaningful way. Emotional intimacy with a partner can be difficult to achieve, even scary, or not seen as particularly valuable in a relationship for those who have an extraordinary sense of independence. Now, do remember, interdependence is not the same as being codependent. A codependent person tends to rely heavily on others for their sense of self and well-being. There is no ability for that person to distinguish where they end and their partner begins. there is an enmeshed sense of responsibility to another person to meet their needs and or for their partner to meet all of their needs to feel okay about who they are. Traits of the codependent relationships again include things like poor or no boundaries, people-pleasing behaviors, reactivity, unhealthy, ineffective communication, manipulation, difficulty with emotional intimacy, controlling behaviors, blaming each other, low self-esteem or of one or both partners, no personal interests or goals outside the relationship. Codependent relationships are not healthy and do not allow partners room to be themselves, to grow, to be autonomous. These unhealthy relationships involve one partner or both relying heavily on the other and the relationship for their sense of self, for their feelings of worthiness and overall emotional well-being. There are often feelings of guilt and shame for one or both partners when the relationship is not going well. I'm missing some comments here. Spending time with yourself, finding that balance, face it and respect it. Do not accept it. Yeah. I like that, Jen. I like that. Seeing messages here all over. Okay, so that one doesn't apply to this broadcast. Darlene Lancer, therapist and codependency specialist, explained that codependency involves someone who has lost their core sense of self, so that his or her thinking and behavior revolves around someone or something external, including a person, a substance, or an activity, such as sex or gambling. Now, what is it that makes interdependence healthy for a relationship versus codependence? And you know, as we were growing up, we would learn that things that relating to co would be good. To cooperate, that's a good thing. To cohabitate, we're living together with and helping each other to have a successful home, to build. To co-produce, you work together to produce something. Even co-conspirators, you're working together, right? But in this case, being codependent, now you lose your sense of self. And that is where it becomes dangerous. Interdependence involves a balance of self and others within the relationship, recognizing that both partners are working to be present and meet each other's physical and emotional needs in appropriate and meaningful ways. Partners are not demanding of one another, and they do not look to their partner for feelings of worthiness. This gives each partner space to maintain a sense of self, room to move toward each other in times of need, and the freedom to make these decisions without fear of what will happen in the relationship. A healthy interdependent relationship has several features, and things to look for in a healthy relationship that is not codependent include healthy boundaries, active listening, time for personal interests, clear communication, taking personal responsibility for behaviors, creating safety for each other to be vulnerable. And again, being vulnerable is not being weak. Engaging and responding to each other. Healthy self-esteem, being open and approachable with each other. When partners feel cherished and valued, the relationship becomes a safe haven and a place where the couple can be interdependent. They understand that they are not alone in the relationship. They can turn toward each other safely in times of need and feel secure that their partner will be present. The key to building an interdependent relationship is to be mindful of who you are from the beginning. Now, many times people are looking for or entering relationships simply to avoid feeling alone, without any personal reflection of who they are, what they value, and their goals for the relationship. Taking time for this kind of personal reflection allows you to enter a new relationship with the awareness of self that is critical for the establishment of an interdependent relationship. That finding of self right there, and this is Kevin Stew talking. This is not the information that I have found that I'm presenting to you. This is Kevin Stew talking. This recognition of self, that discovery of self, is very important, in my opinion, to how you advance in any relationship. It is what I believe is at the foundation of interdependency. Because now you are aware of who you are, you're aware of what you will do, you're aware of the things you like and the things that you don't like, and you put boundaries in place that say, this is something that I don't like you doing because it affects me in this way. So I don't like it. So if you're going to do it, you can do it over there. I'm not telling you that you cannot do it. I'm just saying, please don't do it with me or around me. And so this recognizing the things that you like and the things that you don't like, recognizing your goals that you want to accomplish, recognizing that someone else may have goals, that they have dreams, that they have things that they like and the things that they don't like. And then to be able to put those two together individually and live in harmony and grow and build together. That is how you get to that point, with the recognition of self and understanding that you stand alone, but you are not alone in where you stand. If that makes sense to you guys out there. So, licensed psychotherapist Sharon Martin suggests it is important to maintain a sense of self in your intimate relationships. She suggests some ways to do this include knowing what you like and what matters to you, not being afraid to ask for what you want, spending time with friends and family, continuing to pursue your personal goals, being mindful of your values, making time for your hobbies and interests, not being afraid to say no. That's a big one. And not keeping yourself small or hidden just to please others. Allowing your partner room for and opportunity to do these same things will be key to establishing a healthy, interdependent relationship. Starting your relationship in this way can allow for the development of a safe space for both partners to learn how to turn toward each other intimately without fear of losing themselves or being controlled or manipulated. Interdependent relationships do not leave people feeling guilty or scared of their partner or the relationship, but rather leaves them feeling safe with their partner. Take time to reflect on who you are and what you want in your most important relationships. Being mindful of this in the dating process can help to ensure that your relationship will be healthy and more solid for the long term. It gets tricky when you've been in a relationship for an extended period of time, and then you realize you know, this particular thing is not me. This particular thing is me. And then you have to express that to a partner. From personal experience, I can tell you that is one of the most scary things to do. To learn something or to come to terms with something about yourself, and having been with someone for an extended period of time, to say to them, boy, you know, this is what I've realized. This is how I realize that I am. This is who I realize that I am. This is what I realize that I like. And this ends up being a change in the relationship. Because now the person that you're telling this sees this as, but you didn't say this before. What is bringing about this change? Why are you telling me this now? Why couldn't you have told me this before? And now this becomes a conflict. And the relationship ends up being stressed. When you recognize that this is something that you not should do, but you must do, then you start changing the dynamics of your relationship. And again, not all change is bad, but change is necessary, because change comes with growth. Anything that does not grow is stagnant. Anything that is stagnant is dead. Now, navigating these changes can be quite challenging. And this is DJ Kevin Stew talking. This is not information from some doctor somewhere that I have found. From my own experience, I can tell you navigating this type of change is stressful. It is not the easiest thing to do, but it is necessary. It is necessary for you, the individual, that has recognized that this change has to be made. It is necessary for the other person in the relationship to recognize who you are, to recognize what they're dealing with. It is important for the continued growth of that relationship. And the growth of that relationship could very well be the growth to the end of that relationship. That's not something that people would see as growth. But as individuals, if you're going to move forward, it may very well mean the growth towards the end of that particular relationship that you're in. It doesn't mean that you dislike that person that you're with. It doesn't mean that you are now hating. It doesn't mean that love has ended. It means that that chapter of your life, that relationship that you're in at that particular point in time, has come to a point where it has to change. And it is for you, the individuals that are involved at that point, to recognize that change is time for that change and how you're going to navigate it. Tough stuff. Nothing to sneeze at, nothing to just chuckle and say, hey, I did this. It takes work. It takes effort. Hey, Nikki, how you doing? It's been a minute. Good to see you. Relationships are typically hard work. Not impossible work, but it's generally hard work when you're at the point of creating them. You're trying to navigate through how the relationship is supposed to look, and it's normal to see it as hard work when you're setting it up. Typically, things that you're setting up that's the hardest. When you're maintaining it, that's when it becomes easy. And because of the nature of relationships, you get into these relationships and you say, boy, this is how I'm going into this relationship, and this is how it's going to be. And this is how you expect it to stay. Because it's all honeymoon, it's all rainbows and unicorns and butterflies. But even with rainbows, either the sun comes out all the way and the rain clouds go away, hence the rainbow goes away, or the light gets drowned out. Either way, the rainbow goes away. Flowers fade. Butterflies die. And the cycle starts all over. It is said nothing lasts forever. But we can enjoy the things for the duration that they last. Doesn't have to be horrible. And even in their ending, it doesn't have to be that detrimental. Yes, you'll miss it. It's like when people pass away, when people transition, you miss them. But nothing and no one lasts forever. The moment we start to recognize that as not necessarily a bad thing is the moment that we can move closer towards change and growth. We're gonna take a quick break and then jump off Facebook Live. 773-789 still gets you in touch with me. I'm gonna jump off Facebook Live. I'm gonna jump into musical therapy. You can still tune in to TuneIn Radio, the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew on TuneIn Radio, or on NIE Radio, radio.com. You can tune in to the rest of the broadcast there. KevinStew.com will be back soon and very soon. Those of you who are tuning in late and want to listen to the entire broadcast, the podcast will be up by tomorrow. The podcast will be up. If you're not yet following the podcast, it is The Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew. You can search for it on all platforms. iHeart, TuneIn, Google, Apple, Anchor, Spotify, Amazon, Audible. Am I leaving any out? I'm probably leaving some of them out. But the Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew, the podcast is available everywhere. And there is the Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew on YouTube. So you can see the broadcast also, if that is what you're into. Thank you once again for your support. Thank you for participating. Truly appreciate of you. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to bounce off Facebook Live. Jan, thank you for your comments. Truly appreciate of you. As always. Y'all take care if you're not going to join with me for the remainder of the broadcast for musical therapy. Y'all take care of yourselves until the next time. Remember, I am on reggaeglobalradio.com this Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, with the Saturday Stew, where you get the more musical side of me. And of course, in the Saturday Stew, you get Pre-Life with Red Fox and the Secret Ingredient. For you guys on Facebook Live, good morning, good afternoon, good day to you wherever you are in the world. From here in South Florida, good night if you're not jumping over to listen to the remainder of the broadcast on TuneIn Radio or on NIE Radio. Y'all take care. Peace, love, blessings.
Pulse Media Group, innovative streaming and recording, has done it again. A new way to get your business in full view of your neighborhood consumer through AdShare TV. It's available in your neighborhood today. It's easy. Just call us 754-999-6020. Become a host today and place a TV monitor in a strategic location so it's easy to see. Get a 1-minute video ad or longer that plays anywhere in our network. Can't be a host? No problem. For a few dollars, we'll run your 30-second video ad. A host can run announcement specials like buy one get one free or discount ads. Let's turn your flyers into a 30-second video with music or a voiceover, or let us create and run your video ad with a spokesperson. Take advantage of our early enrollment discount. Join us today. Your ad will be seen at least 30 times per day in your AdShare TV neighborhood. It's easy. Just call us 754-999-6020. AdShare TV, part of Pulse Media Group.
Yes, my people. Check out I Red Funks on Reggae Global Radio every Saturday at 8 p.m. with Kev Stew, where I'll give you a pre-life, brand new, good for you. Kick it like a ball if you don't say a dance hall. You hear that?
Greetings and salutations. This is DJ Kevin Stew inviting you to bubble up and simmer down with me in the Saturday Stew right here on Reggae Global Radio. Get ready for the special segment called The Secret Ingredient, where you may hear from your favorite artist or producer. Saturday Stew happens every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time exclusively on ReggaeGlobalRadio.com, where we get high on reggae. Matthew 28:19 says, "Go ye therefore and teach all nations." With this in mind, and encouragement received during a South Florida media conference, The Church Links was birthed. The Church Links is an interdenominational worship service portal for churches, providing the tools to spread the word through technology in a cost-effective way. The Church Links, www.dahchurchlinx.com. Your links to worship and praise. Greetings and salutations, one and all. You're invited to tune in to the Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew. It airs on Mondays with Community and Finance, Tuesdays with Healthy Love, and Wednesdays with Real Talk from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Come spend some time interacting in the stew pot where we keep things bubbling and wind down in musical therapy. The Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew is on kevinstew.com, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment.
Hey, I'm representing for DJ Kevin Stew, working on the Night Shift, the Night Shift radio show. Won't go changing like the weather, just to please the devil never. Will DJ Kevin Stew sell his soul? That's a word and honor. It's Christine representing word and honor. Selassie DJ Kevin Stew.
I don't have no regrets. I think that I won't forget. It's just you and nobody else, no.
This morning, the first thing that I saw, my eyes popped open. Overwhelming beauty's captivating. Oh, I'm aching just to be right next to you. Truth, I've never felt nothing like this. Mind just
from Maurice Gregory.
What a feeling, what a feeling.
That's the title of the track right there. What a feeling.
Basic. When you
I want to say thank you to GMAT Music Solutions for sponsoring this segment of the broadcast called The Musical Therapy. GMAT Music Solutions provides sound, light, and stage production services, musical equipment, PA systems, audio engineers, DJs, bands, musicians, singers, and much more. Give them a call, 754-307-GMAC. That's 754-307-4622. Or check them out online, GMATmusicsolutions.com.
Like you. What a feeling, what a feeling. Never like you. I know you waited for a long time. I waited for you to be mine. What a feeling, what a feeling. Never like you.
Most times last for the first. Yeah. As we try to one design bounce semester. I excel name of the most times last. Righteous God, I breathe, yeah. Last in my eyes, away from me and rock.
The son of Crescenti.
Zion, oh.
It's called I Am Blessed.
The most I grew my locks and my part with success. So now I feel no stress, cause I know I am blessed. So last year I grew my locks and my part with success. So now I feel no stress, cause I know I am. Feel no burden, no bridges that take me on mine. Lift me so high to stand, and I am gonna bless my feet away from all the heat and frown. Then I remain as brave as I was born. Yeah, yeah. The most I grew my locks on my path with success. Christianity will not stress, cause I know I am blessed. So last year I grew my locks on my path with success. Dear, I will not stress, cause I know I am blessed. Cause every morning I open my eyes to see how the mystical blessing just sent from me. No way I refrain from his energy. My eyes will live till eternity, and I will live forevermore. Oh, does so much pain and not want to see my sky get poorer. I will man and never more. And so last year I am sure the most I build my life on my path with success. Christianity will not stress, cause I know I am blessed. So last year I grew my life on my path with success. Did it feel and damn me no feel? Cause we know the past.
Fast approaching is a brand new day. Present times are hard and fast.
This is new music from GAE.
Mass oppression, it must disappear.
Track called A New Haiti.
The Lord has heard his people's tears. A new day comes with no more fear. Once divided, now unite. A new Haiti in a bright new light. Once divided, now unite. A free world with your sovereign mind. Brokenness was brought within.
the cells of those who's conquering.
Lust and envy, greed and pride, a raw deal and a pack of lies. a sovereign might wants to forget. Now unite the free world with Jehovah.
After all I've been through, I never knew I'd ever find you.
This is the sound of Audley Rollin.
I'd find the love that I need.
A track called Never Knew Love Till You.
No one else has ever done the things you do.
For those just joining into musical therapy,
Of me,
welcome, welcome, welcome.
me.
9 minutes to the top of the hour.
I had,
9 more minutes before I get on out of here.
I could be. Never knew love till you. No one else has ever done the things that you do. Never knew love could be true. I would not want to live without you. Never knew love till you. It's a blessing to have found you. Your love is unconditional. Lord, I thank you for loving me. Love is kind. Love is not puffed up. It's not easily provoked. And it's not selfish. Love endures the things. It rejoices in the truth. So when perfection came around, I told all others goodbye. After all I've been through, I never knew I'd ever find you. No, I never knew I'd find the love that I need in you. United we'll stand, divided we fall. Living in this crazy system, I'll never be a victim of this world and what it has to offer. Try to live your life,
This is Little Kirk.
do the things that are right. Give praises.
Mr. Kirk Davis.
Never you hurt your brother.
A track called Every Little Step.
Love your mother. Yeah. Treat her right and be good to your sister. Never you hate your father. Never commit thy neighbor. Never. Cause life can be so unfair. Come on, love the little children. Why don't you pretend? Every little step we take, every move that we make, there is something that try to keep you back. Every little steps that we take, every move that we make, see we're rising and rising to the top. Every little steps that we take, every little move that we make, there is someone that try to hold you back. Every little steps that we take, every little move that we make.
Living in this concrete jungle, knowing we will stumble.
cry. Don't worry, don't cry. Tell my mama, don't worry, don't worry, don't cry. We will overcome.
The sound of singing sweet.
Overcome.
It's called Don't Worry.
Everybody got their problems that they're facing day to day.
As we close out this night shift week,
Every day
I do want to remind you to look out for each other in the community. And the community is not just a development that you live in, but it spreads far and wide.
we will overcome.
So those that you pass on the bus, on the plane, on the boat, or the train, whether you walk, ride, or drive, these are members of your community. Do something for one of them today, because you never know who's going to do something good for you tomorrow. My name is DJ Kevin Stew, so I like to do it to you, for you, and with you every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 10 p.m. Eastern. Right here on the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. As we go into the weekend,
Don't worry, don't worry. I tell my mama,
I do want to
don't cry.
stress
Don't worry,
that if you can't, you should be good.
you'll be alright.
But if you can't be good at it.
I tell my baby, don't worry, I'm coming home tonight.
Bouncing out tonight with the sound of singing sweet. I'll see if I can squeeze in one more before I go, but this one is called Don't Worry.
Don't worry, don't worry. I tell my mama, don't worry, don't worry, don't cry. Don't worry, don't worry. I tell my baby, don't worry, don't worry, don't cry. Don't worry, don't cry. Tell my mama, don't worry, don't cry. We will overcome. One day we will overcome. Yeah, everybody got their problems that they're facing day to day. Every day it's a struggle, but we will overcome. One day we will overcome. Yeah, but we can't lose hope, just can't lose faith. Got to keep trying and make it escape. Can't give up now. We came too far. We will overcome. Oh, we will overcome. Don't worry, don't worry. I tell my mama, don't worry, don't worry, don't cry. Don't worry, don't worry. I tell my mama, don't worry, everything will be alright. Don't worry, don't cry. I tell my baby, don't worry, I'm coming home tonight. We will overcome. One day we will overcome. Yeah, why they
Hey, good night, good afternoon, good day, good morning.
fighting back?
Blessings to each and every one of you, wherever you are in the world. From right here in South Florida, I do bid you a good night.
Yes, we will overcome. One day we will overcome. Yeah, we can conquer the world. Take me to space. Got to keep flying and make it escape. Can't give up now. We came too far. We will overcome. Oh, we will overcome.
Greetings and salutations, one and all. You're invited to tune in to the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. It airs on Mondays with Community and Finance, Tuesdays with Healthy Love, and Wednesdays with Real Talk from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Come spend some time interacting in the stew pot where we keep things bubbling and wind down in psychotherapy. The night shift with DJ Kevin Stew is on kevinstew.com, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment.